The Old School is brought to you by Ahart Solutions, which provides school surveys and applied research. More information at ahartsolutions.com. Okay. Good morning. Welcome to The Old School, a podcast about the American education system and sundry. We touch on a lot of topics. We're two very interesting individuals, and so therefore we have very interesting ideas and interests. And with me in the exploration of said ideas is my good friend, Dr. Stephen Bourgeois. Good morning, sir.
Here, Miller, it's good to see you. We've had a week off, and it sounds like
2 weeks.
it sounds like you were vamping. Like we don't really know what our topic is, and you were hoping that during your intro it would come to you. Sort of. I think we did one. Did we do one on improvisation at some point?
We haven't done a podcast in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah. So we're kind of off our rhythm, and
I blame you.
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I blame you. That's typically what happens.
And then where do we go from there?
Right, we end up right back here. That's what happens.
Like an old married couple, just not knowing what to do with ourselves. We just sit here and don't talk and drink coffee. We can do that.
Some cultures, that's what they do when they get together. No one says a word. Just
Highlight of their day.
sit there.
I had to endure this weekend, and I don't want to say endure because that sounds too mean, but uh, I had to watch my daughter sing in like a concert, like a choral concert. And it's fine. She did lovely. The rest of the kids did lovely. The directors were great.
Oh,
Everything was fine.
good. So you had a good concert.
It was a good concert. She did well. And like I said, we went to another one this morning because once you do it well in one spot, then you got to take the gang on the road and then, do it in another spot so you can win competitions. And so they did a sweetened honey pot for this one though, because they're now at Six Flags. So there's a bunch of raving lunatic fifth and sixth graders at Six Flags right now.
And they're performing outdoors.
Well, no, they did the performance earlier this morning
Oh,
at a school,
now they're
and
celebrating.
then they're celebrating by going to. Well, they had already had it planned, so I guess it's not a spontaneous celebration, but certainly not a celebration that was initially planned based on the results, but rather just the end conclusion of a job well done. Hopefully.
But that sounds great. It means that they're at Six Flags and you're not having to be there with them.
It's the great thing about being the parent of a child who is in the arts is that there's plenty of stage parents that just love to volunteer for stuff like this. Almost said shit. Stuff like this.
Oh,
Not that it's shit. I mean, it's fine. They're going to Six Flags. Well, I mean, why would that be a bad thing? Only if I had to um chaperone.
it's a circle of hell. Yeah,
Huh?
it's actually in Dante. It's one of the circles of hell.
Certainly for me, and it's not listen, I'm not just complaining just for the sake of complaining. I
Think
think
about little young kids singing and then having fun. Those are the two things you're complaining about right now.
no, it's fine. It's one of those things where you find yourself at an event
Yeah,
that you're not inherently interested in. That if your kid wasn't there, there's no way in hell you would be there. And so you find the interest only, it starts out only having the interest in the kid. And then that makes you over evaluate the things she does, the faces she makes, if she yawns at any time during the concert.
yeah. Everybody's fixated on their kid just with their camera too, right?
I'm surrounded by people who are not watching the concert, they're recording it. So, they'll listen to it later, I guess. But But no, it's fine, and I'm glad that she's having fun. I'm glad that she's having fun without me. Because let's be honest,
Yeah,
it's not just parents who need a break from kids. Kids need a break from their parents.
they do, but they need to see them there. I mean, kids today, when they're on stage, they're like waving and parents are shouting at them, just screaming their name. Go, you can do it, so and so, and oh,
Yeah, I had a different approach because the concert I went to a few days ago, it was at night. It was at the local school, a local high school. At one point, it was before the concert even started, and the kids, my daughter's group, were like sitting in some of the seats, and so when we found our seat, we waved at her, or I waved at her to let her know where we were. And I swear to God, this kid, when I waved at her, she had like a frown on her face initially, like, "What the hell are you doing?" You know.
working.
At which point I said, "Okay, we're going to do this." And so I started waving frantically and said, "Hey, Greta, hey, it's over here. It's your parent." Just embarrassing the hell out of her.
You did
And
that.
then that's what you get for frowning when your parent waves at you. Not obnoxiously, just a gentle wave. Hey, here's where we are. And she copped an attitude with
Plus,
a look.
they're on stage. And they're first of all, it's a little. They're kind of nervous, worried, and but they're also in their stage moment. And then you're trying to break the spell.
They're playing grab ass over there in the seats where they're sitting before the concert. There is no locked in. It's not like she's getting ready to play Wimbledon.
Yeah,
She's one of she could.
you'll probably be uninvited to the next one.
Well, here's the interesting thing. So she had this little side gig that they did today, this morning, and initially, my wife and I didn't think we were gonna go. We saw the concert a couple of days ago. Why would we be there today? And it wasn't a large crowd, so plenty of parents did not go. Let's not judge us that we thought that we weren't gonna be there. But then Jen, my wife, she just kind of threw it out to my daughter last night. It was like, "Hey, do you want us to be there?" And apparently my daughter goes, "Well, I would assume you would be there." And I'm like, "Well," so my wife asked the question, she got the answer, and then we were both watching the same 3 ditties that they sang a few nights ago. They did it again in
Okay.
front of judges.
Despite your antics, the point is that you're there.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
great.
my antics was on the first night, but like I said, don't blow off your parents when they're waving at you to let you know where they are.
The wave is supposed to be subtle. It's like a little nod. That's enough.
Well, insofar it's a huge room. You can't nod in a huge room and think she's going to see you. You have to raise the hand a little bit.
I don't know, they can see everything. They hear better. They can see better. They're probably smarter than we are. They're just waiting for us to catch up.
I don't hold with that at all.
Sure.
So anyway, who knows what she's thinking right now? Hopefully she's having fun and she's riding rides that I would not want to ride with her, and that's fine.
Good.
She likes those death-defying things. Do you know what I heard one time? I heard that people who ride a lot of those zero gravity crazy rides, that they have a greater proclivity to experiencing detached retinas. Have you ever heard of that before?
This is the first time.
Something about the G-force and being racked around or what have you, that the retina is barely hanging on there. It's like a thin little thingamajig that's connected to the bigger thingamajig behind your eyeballs. But they said that all that messing around has the likelihood of a detached retina happening.
Well, I knew there was something wrong with the activity. That it's not natural to put yourself in what appears to be danger flying around. So I guess my retinas are intact because I never even liked those things as a kid.
So is that to say that you will never have a detached retina?
I have a lot of things that are detached, but not my retina.
Well, today, after that rather prolonged look into the
Yes.
world of a suburban parent with a child in the arts, uh, a state of condition you know well. Um, talking about the idea of rootedness.
Rooted, excuse me? Rooted?
Rootedness.
How do you spell that? Rude, like being rude?
Now, root,
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 like the earth and the roots, the ground underneath the ground, and rootedness. Because it's not a term that people throw around. Like I would guess that most people hearing that would wonder, what is Ross talking about? And you throw it off like rudeness, rudeness.
you think I typically on a daily basis just throw out words that no one else is using?
Yeah, you do it with me all the time. I always have a dictionary. One time you insulted me, and I said, "Don't insult me until I looked it up." Uh,
Well, you're doing great. You're
and there's another of our pauses of Ross Miller with his world-class internet service at home. This one seems to be lasting a little longer than usual. Ross, are you back?
I'm here. I've
Okay.
always been here. I haven't left.
I was vamping for about 8 seconds there, and I was building up to a joke, but I never let it rip.
Yeah, because you psyched yourself out. You do the show for the audience, not for me. If I'm not listening, don't worry about it.
I've been doing that for years. Uh, so what was this new word you just invented?
I didn't just invent it.
Hmm.
It's many people talk about it. It's a part of common conversation for some folks. Rootedness,
Having roots.
having roots. What would you say are how I mean, how let's start with how rooted we are. How often do you think you've moved in your life?
Well, I thought about it before the show. I mean, if you count little times going off to college, and I mean that's sort of moving. Anytime you pack up your stuff and go, um,
Pack up your old kit bag,
yeah, I think I've been technically in 4 states, and about 13 residences, and a lot of them. I mean, I've had a couple of long stints, growing up, about 25 years or so in a place, but then since I left Oregon, there have been about 9 others. So I think my calculation was 13 residences and 4.8 years average. And as an adult, that average per resident was 4.0. So about 4 years, every 4 years, I take my roots and pull them up. And yeah, so that's kind of my number. And I know you've been in different countries and traveled with the military and all that, but as far as residing, residence where you pay your taxes, what's your number?
well, like you, it's 3 states, and I would say, um, considering residences, it has to be well over 20. It
Right,
be
yeah.
just, well, yeah, I mean, just as far as, like, moving around, I mean, I moved around a lot as a kid, and so we were very, peripatetic. Not quite peripatetic, but I mean, we moved around a lot. We had a lot of different residences. If I had to sit there and think about all the different places that I've been to, I think it would be a hard task to nail it down specifically. That's how much we moved around, but, yeah, you throw in the military, and that's certainly a peripatetic lifestyle, just traipsing around, globetrotting. But yeah, it has to be well over 20.
Wow. And then if you add to that all the travel, I mean, you know, we've been all over the world, and then think about all the business trips, all the hotels and nights that you're not there. But um, so I have a more simple question, maybe. Of all those 20 residences, how many neighbors by first name can you name for me? there's a silence happening on the whole school
I'm
bus.
try-
I was just
the
looking
pro
up.
the
That's
problem is that the vast majority of moving around I did was when I was a kid, and you're not unless they have kids, you're not typically inclined to get to know the neighbors. I've also lived in some pretty rough places, and that way you just keep your head down. You're not necessarily. It's not like there's like a neighborhood barbecue going on or anything like that. You know.
pretty terrible.
So, some sort of block party where picnic tables and the fine paper plate china is out. Even so we didn't have a lot of that, so I didn't. Maybe as an adult, I could probably name a handful.
Yeah,
I usually knew my next door neighbor, but outside of that, I wouldn't have known anybody beyond that unless I had a reason to.
yeah, that sounds about right. Even now, I could probably rattle off 2 names, across
Okay,
the
well, I'm in a bit of a special situation now because I'm in a cul-de-sac.
well, so do I. I don't know the cul-de-sac. They
You
don't
don't know all the people in your cul-de-sac?
no, I wave at them and smile, but no, I couldn't I if I ran into them in the grocery store, no, I wouldn't even register it. Um,
Well, this is a pretty the thing I think that makes this a little bit different is one, a lot of the people that are in this cul-de-sac have been here for decades.
okay, so they have rootedness.
They have well, this brings up another question though. Is the fact is the fact that we've moved around to a bunch of different residences, even if it's residences within the same general area of a state, is that a lack of rootedness that you're not in the same house? Is that what constitutes being rooted? That you're in the same house for decades? Or is it in the same town or the same area of a state or the same state? For
The
our purposes, what constitutes being rooted?
I think it has to do with, being, in a community where people do know you, where you go to where you can just walk over and knock on their door and come in and I mean, I think, growing up, there was a community, in that my house as a kid, and, some of my very best friends still, to this day came from that community there, and, I but yeah, so I think it has to do with the local, meaning where you live specifically. I mean, nobody knows anybody in the community unless it's a very small town anymore.
So, a feeling that many people would ascribe as an internal thing, you think is based upon externalities, neighbors, other people, interactions. Does that mean that someone who does not have any connection to or time with the people in their neighborhood, does that mean that they're not rooted?
Well, I mean, the opposite, kind of uprootedness is, a lot of it has to do with family, so the center of that would be family. And so you think about how many family members are still where they started out or dispersed across the country and the
Mhm.
world. So that would certainly be the core and really most of it, as that unit dissipates and goes in different directions. So the neighbors are really, um, kind of just that, neighbors, but not as important as that very small unit.
So, a lot of people would ascribe the idea of rootedness to a certain level of stability,
Mhm.
but we've never really had it in the United States. We've had neighborhoods,
Mhm.
we've had places where people go back to sometime, even though they say you can never go home again.
Right,
And they have places that you can go back to. However, our country has been uniquely not rooted.
right,
So if you look throughout US history, and you can start with, the 1820s, 1840s as people start to move from the eastern regions of the country further west. You think about post-Civil War where you had the Western expansion period and then the gold rush, people moving out to California to get rich or, go somewhere else. And then in the United States in the 1900s, the two world wars usually caused a great deal of moving around as people moved around for, wartime jobs or whatever the case may be. 1920, 19 teens, 1920s, there was a huge movement of Black Americans from the South to the North or the upper Midwest as they looked to, one, get away from all the the heinous stuff in the South, but then also try to find economic opportunities in a safe place up north. And then after World War II, of course, that's amplified by Eisenhower's, Interstate Highway Act that started moving, not only moving people, but moving people quickly. You know, people, people that had been, the last 5 decades have been leaving the South for all kinds of reasons. Then in the 1960s, people start moving south again, mainly because of the advent of AC. And so you start to see, and it's cheaper, and you start to see people go back towards the south, if not the southwest. I think I mentioned this last time. There's a great map that shows the mean population center by decade in U.S. history,
Mhm.
and you can kind of see where we kind of hunkered down, like the depression. People stayed together, try to conserve money, try to help each other out. And then you can also see when the gap is large, you can see where there's been a lot of social mobility. And so in a country that is not known for rootedness, one, do we have it? And two, is it necessarily a bad thing that we don't?
There's definitely something missing. I think you explained it really, really well. I mean, we think about our friends, the friends that we know in Germany. Most of them are in the same house for when we met them years ago, and the thought of relocating it doesn't. I mean, you're in a job first of all for life often,
Mhm.
and we could do that same count of how many jobs we've had over the years, and it's
Yeah.
so that's even a higher number, within the look at the two documents, your housing document and your resume, and
Mhm.
those are again, when a work community is very similar in some ways, much tighter than where you live, and then so those communities change as well. But I do think it is an American phenomenon, and I don't, maybe there are other places like this, but it does have a psychological effect to the point where you don't expect to stay that long, and so when you get neighbors, you wonder, okay, how long are they going to be there? Somebody comes in. I mean, particularly the younger generation, they're switching jobs very quickly. They have no intention of staying long term at a, you know. So yeah, I think there is a lack of something. I mean, the term rootedness also connects literally to the earth and to the land, and that becomes a sacred idea that's the same soil that you've been part of for a very, very long time. And so when you lose that connection to the earth and the nature, that's an element of rootedness as well.
So unless you're a part of the land, and I mean, I'm trying to figure out, is there a way for us to be rooted without having a lot of these things that we're talking about? Is there any chance of having a feeling of rootedness without being hunkered down in a particular place? As long as my wife is here, as long as my daughter is here, and
Right.
now my in-laws, is that enough? Does that create the feeling? And I don't need to be tilling the soil with my hands. I don't need to be living in the same house for 50 years. Can you have that feeling without the traditional situation of having that?
That's a psychological idea. I think that internally we do have this gravitation towards home, whatever that is.
Right.
And and I can feel that. I mean, I would consider the state of Oregon home still. And there's something about the quality of light, the smell, and everything is a little different, and you do gravitate toward that. Um, but technology, and you mentioned it before, not just the ability to travel, but now the ability to communicate like we're doing right now,
Right.
creates an incredible immediacy, that and most work today is done just like this, and so
Mhm.
the concept of the office is about to go away, when most of the tasks are done on a computer. So people are going to be working remotely, and then that uproots another type of community. Um, yeah, but there's always something lost. Certainly, I mean, you can't just arbitrarily plant a flag and say, okay, this is where I shall reside for the rest of my days. That's not how it works. But
But at the same time,
yeah,
if you can be rooted and live in different places, then it seems to negate the necessity at all that you should be in one place or one city or one state or what have you, that it is a more of a nebulous notion to be rooted. And maybe this does come to family. If me and my daughter and my wife and my
yeah,
in-laws move 50 times in the next 10 years,
yeah.
as long as we're together, we're still rooted, yes?
In a way, for sure. And then when that group spreads out, for college for your daughter and so forth, it's still, the family doesn't change, but you can also there comes a time in life where you can count on your hand how many more times you're going to see these people at length, not just in passing. But change is so constant, with that unit, and it didn't used to be. I mean, there you can imagine a community where the immediate family is if not in the same home in the same town, and so you're continuing that interaction. You have family dinners, every
Mhm.
every Sunday. Um, that we kind of romanticize these small farming type communities where everybody knows each other. Um, I
Well, it's a Rockwellian idea
It is.
because
Yeah, I would find it rather, unnerving in a way. I mean, they would say my name, they would say Steve and give me a nod, and
yeah,
but they don't really know Steve or
right.
or what Steve is thinking at this moment or and any of that. So it's sort of it could be superficial rootedness,
Mhm.
in a way, and those people didn't really earn their way in. You just happened to move there, but there's something about time, uh, the you come by these relationships naturally, and they do take time to generate and take root, as it were.
It's an organic development.
Yeah, for sure, but it does make us, wonder about, communities that are sort of thrust upon you. I mean, the new community is they build 1,000 houses, and then they drop in a couple of schools and then the grocery stores, and so it's kind of backwards in a way. You
Mhm.
build the residents first. How tough is it to build a house in Germany? It's a big production. You get all
There's
these.
no space.
Right, right, and so yeah, so we're kind of a victim of our own affluence of space, but yeah,
Yes.
they're putting in a new house, that becomes a citywide event, wow, I wonder who's gonna live there.
This is exciting. I wonder who yeah, I wonder who's
Yeah,
gonna come in.
yeah,
Um,
and
but
but then I think Germans could be kinda nosy also. They'll wanna know, "Who is this?" And we go talk to you, but we have this idea of privacy, that we can live up right close to people, but very respectful of privacy to a fault, or we'll never even speak to them.
well, I think the nosiness, I mean, we tease about it, we make
Yeah,
fun of it, we laugh about it, but I think that's another aspect of rootedness. I mean,
exactly.
when you're in a particular place, when you're surrounded by the same particular people, there's a certain amount of, uh not right, but there's a certain amount of correctness that you should know what's happening around you.
Yeah.
And, the longer you're next door to somebody, presumably the longer you have the kind of relationship where you might be able to ask what's going on without coming across as nosy. But then us as Americans drop us into the middle of this little German, life experience, and all of a sudden it seems obtrusive, it seems confrontational, it seems nosy to the point of being rude.
So do you remember when we moved into our current house? This would have been 8 years ago, and we've known each other longer than that. We had a gathering, a housewarming kind of for
Yes.
ourselves, and we invited the cul-de-sac. We invited
Mhm.
the neighbors, and, you came, and so the feeling was, oh wow, this is going to be great. We're going to hang out with these folks, and they came. They came. They drank beer. They ate our food, and we had fun. But that event never happened again. Uh, I thought, we definitely tried. I thought that was good, but at the same time, our neighbors across the street are out there watching football in their garage all year, basically, different sports. So they keep it going, But
But
uh,
see, you also suffer from a detractment that makes this more difficult to do. Because I think most people would see their neighbors outside in their garage watching football, and they would have no compunction to just walk over there,
walk over there
say,
with a
"Hey,
six
how's it
pack.
going? What's the score?" And say, "Hey, can I have a seat? Go ahead, grab a beer. You want a sausage or what have you." And I think that that's how it happens. But
Yeah,
you're not inclined, and
no,
to
it's
a
my
certain
fault.
degree, yeah, a certain
But
degree, I'm not inclined to kind of initiate that.
yeah, and I'd probably have a hell of a good time there and meet people, and yeah, but it's just it's a personal thing. I mean, I don't people don't see me in front of the house. I'm not one of those people who putters around in the yard or is in the yard. The garage door is closed. That's where we keep our cars. Yeah, that's where there should be. And then I back out to make sure I don't run into a kid and leave the neighborhood. I left the building, but yeah, so I'm never really in very public. Um,
So you have something inherently about you that makes rootedness more difficult.
I don't know. Internally, I'm having a pretty good experience. Um, but I mean, I think of this, philosophically. We say the term. We think of Martin Heidegger, the German philosopher, and we visited his hut in the Black Forest, you and I,
Yes.
and that was an example of a deep idea of the earth, to the point where that hut um, w- was a bit of a walk, and that was part of it. You're supposed to, according to Heidegger, have a clearing to get to that residence, and then but within the space, the hut is supposed to be built by trees from the earth where it stands, and literally that hut is built into the earth. The back side of it
Mhm.
is in the ground, and so it's this because it's on a hill.
Mm.
Back is in the earth, and that for him is symbolic of the nation as a people, but also this very close relationship with the ground and the earth. And then he does his thinking is deep thinking within that hut, not in the at the university or in his home. So he goes there to have a clearing away from technology, away from all the distraction to think these thoughts that revolutionized Western philosophy. But that's the my notion is if I tried to build a hut here, I'd be going to Home Depot for the materials. So the
Using wood from a tree like 500 miles away or something.
Yeah, so but there's something romantic about that, and that's kind of a definition of romanticism, because that's very big too, as far as the earth that comes from that period. But that's sort of extreme, but it doesn't have to do as much with the neighbor
Right.
as your own experience there. I think that's my concept. I mean, we're forcing the conversation a little bit more towards neighbors and that type
Right.
of community, but my concept of rudeness would involve being outside, and I'm not outside in this Texas neighborhood. but but there's something about, would you plant a flag and build a hut from something from the earth where you reside? That's to me a deeper relationship in some ways, similar to the family.
We're asking a lot of questions about rootedness, and I think for me, it can create a certain amount of crises. And I think about the idea of we talked about it in on this podcast about the time where I burned out as a teacher, and I thought, what am I if I'm not a teacher? You know, and I recovered and I finished out my career, but I kind of related to when people ask me where I'm from. My sense of that question is not necessarily where I live now. My sense of the question is where am I from historically? Where was I developed? Where was I shaped? Where was I, molded and influenced and what have you? And to a large extent, it's the city of Baltimore. But if you ask me, for example, so if I consider Baltimore to be kind of a place where I feel rooted, I don't feel that way anymore because I sit there and I think to myself, could I pick up right now and move to Baltimore? I don't think I'd want to because what I was there is not what I am now. And so I'm not sure I would experience that place in the same way, and yes, neighbors should not be a spoken part of what it means to be rooted someplace. But if the people you associate with that place is no longer there, then is that place there? Is that place in your mind? Is that place in your imagination? Is it still there? And is it worthy of still considering as your hometown or where you're from compared to where you're living now?
So it would be a wonderful exercise to move right back into that neighborhood as close as possible to. I mean, how many years were you in Baltimore? You talk about it a lot, but just physically, how long did you stay there?
From 7 to 18, maybe 8 to 18 or something like that, 10 years?
Okay, so 10 years out of how many decades have you been around?
Well,
But
yeah,
yeah, yeah, but you're from there because those are your formative years, and
it
then
looms large in
yeah,
my story.
yeah, yeah, that's right, and that's where you became who you are. So maybe you
But it's not just that, it's something that you use to create your identity
for sure.
beyond from where you were. It's something that creates an identity of who you are
Mhm.
as it relates to other people.
Yeah, and you still have the accent. You
A
it's
tiny bit.
tiny bit. You don't sound like a Texan.
Well, I've always wondered if I sounded like a Texan, but
No, no,
I lost my accent a while ago.
you're. I don't believe that. But you have the gestures and everything of the East Coast. You conduct yourself. You could be from New York or Pittsburgh. I'm just trying to annoy you with these names. Uh, but you have a little bit of that East Coast gesture in you.
Well, part of that's from my dad. Part of it, we joke about the Talmudic shrug or just the
Talmudic shrug. Huh?
"What are you gonna do?" Yeah. So so again, those are remnants of where I'm from.
Yeah, that's a
But like I
true
said,
thing.
I'm not sure that would be enough to console me if I ever had to move back to my old neighborhood where gangs were kind of roaming the streets.
No, it's a different. Well, think about Texas. How many Texans would say, "What are you going to do?"
Mm.
At least they didn't suffer. That kind of thing. It's not the attitude, right?
I think about the idea of leaving Texas, and I certainly have no compunction about leaving. I'll
You
leave
do it.
now.
You,
I'll leave now. I'll burn this house down. You just tell me where we're going. I'll go,
you have
so
this antsiness. We haven't even talked about that side of it. This
yeah.
Wanderlust, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I have had to squash that,
Yeah.
vigorously over the years just because, you just get antsy, you wanna go, and I think travel in part kind of ameliorates that situation a little bit. You know, if you can, if at the very least you can travel, get out of town, hit the road, something like that, then that keeps you from going crazy.
So there's the phrase from Goethe's Faust that two souls reside in you. And I think, one is, and this, goes back to all these years of being, you have the farmer idea of, building crops and staying on location, but then you also have the nomadic life, and that's all in there. But but I think for both of us, that need to keep moving is deep, and so I think you're right. The travel scratches that itch, but and if I were here without any, just me, no, I the concept of relocating every year or whatever, just to see something different, but there's something exciting about establishing something new and then leaving, you know, 'cause I don't like that's why I'm a consultant now, and I'm happier than when I was working. Because when you
Right.
work, you go in there, there's the same people, same person at the front desk, and you talk to people, and it's, but there's a lot of drama happening during that time and work,
Mm,
but then there's also this routine, where you drive there every day and you pass through the same, the park in the same place and so forth. But then the opposite of that is being a consultant, where you go to a client, you may drive there, you get into the parking lot, you go present to them, everybody's happy, and then you turn, and that turn is a beautiful thing. It's
mm.
kinda like the turn in the myth of Sisyphus, where he's about to turn and walk back down the hill. But that's his turning in all his strength, and there's a power to it, but also you realize you're not part of that drama, and you're separate, and you turn and you move, and then you have another one, and I like that feeling of being a little bit on the outside. I think both of us are kinda comfortable as outsiders. That's
Mhm.
more of a comfort zone, than being the one who's on the inside all the time.
Well, as Groucho Marx said, I would never be part of a club that would have me as a member, but,
Yes.
you know,
He'd he'd joke in your don't
but I think for as much as I want to be rooted, and as much as people complain that there's no sense of community anymore, I don't think we really would be willing to do what that would take, what that would require. And I'm not
Oh,
sure, as much as I might say, I wish I was more rooted, I'm not sure I would be willing to do what would be required for me to feel more rooted. Because as you say, whether I'm a body with two souls or not, I think they're constantly at war with each other. I just don't I'm not sure I would be happy. It's the same with teaching. I didn't wanna stay. I learned early on. When I first started teaching, I thought I wanted to stay at the same school for 30 years
yeah,
and teach people's children and grandchildren. And then quite quickly, it dawned on
yeah,
me that that was not to be my life.
yeah. I mean, it's fun for a little bit. I guess the longest I was at a school was probably 6 years. Uh,
Mm.
but then, yeah, you get a little bit antsy, and, yeah, I would rather be on the open road, I think, and that's just I think maybe people tend towards one of those or the other.
Do we as a society or do we as individuals lose something irreparably harmful by not being rooted? Or is it simply something that is an ideal, but one that perhaps is not that practical?
I think the technology has changed the whole world, that and so we're hearkening back to a simpler time that'll never be here again. The fact
Mm,
that people can travel so easily now and communicate so easily from a distance and work from a distance. I mean, your work used to be the thing that kept you there. So I think we've opened the Pandora's box, and we won't be able to go back. I mean, we try to create. community, and that's human nature also. We weave ties with people. That's just in our nature as well. And you and I are both, even though we may be introverted in a lot of ways, we meet people and we make connections, and that's part of it also. But now it becomes easier to make far off connections. I mean, you have, you know, Zoom calls to practice your German and Italian and these languages that you learn with people on the other side of the globe, and you're friends with them.
Yeah.
And so the idea of being in the same room with somebody suddenly is not a prerequisite for being part of the community.
I think about it in terms of, though, that maybe it's a drive that we have that supersedes our interests because, like, for example, you go on YouTube and there's a slew of people who bought an RV at one point during
Mhm.
COVID, and they decided they were gonna make a channel of them traipsing across the country,
Yeah.
and they would often say, "Well, we don't have to live anywhere. We can just, we have computers here, we have Wi-Fi here," you know? And yet it seems like each one of them, a lot of them, their channels never last that long for a variety of reasons. But part of it, I think, is because a lot of them feel that they have to have something. They can't just be this nomadic, type of individual where home is where they hang their hat or what have you, but rather they need something that represents in their mind more stability. So I think even for the people who perhaps are the alpha example of the I don't have to live anywhere, I can work it from everywhere. I think most of them, I mean, there's still some that continue to do it, but I think the vast majority of them eventually come back to a place.
I can understand that. You need at least something, but it's a constant battle, and it's an inner battle. I don't know if I've ever told the story of the penguin on this podcast. Have I?
I don't know. Did
Did
you?
I?
I
Uh,
don't know.
well, it's a scene in a film by Werner Herzog, the German director, and I think I showed it to you. But they are in, I believe it's Antarctica, and then they notice this phenomenon that's that is relatively common, where there's the community that's either by the water or by the where the food is, whatever, but they're together as a community to survive. And every once in a while, a penguin gets a notion to leave, and so they filmed with this really dramatic music. This one penguin who turned north or south in that case, and just left the water source and left the food source and just kept walking. And he said that if you try to stop to hold them back, don't do that because they're just going to continue in that direction. And they're walking slowly, methodically towards death. There's no doubt about that. But something kind of snapped. And what is it? Did they just grow tired of their community, had enough? But they just flop very methodically north, and their end or south, and their end is clear, but they're heading in that direction with a purpose, and that's it. And it happens, more than just once in a movie, but it happens all the time. They just sometimes they have this sense, okay, I'm tapping out, but rather than just they actually leave. And but it was a beautiful, I mean, in a way, it's this tragic but beautiful because of the single-mindedness of that penguin, and tragic, and you're wondering, did is that a suicidal penguin? Did the mind snap, or is it something deeper? Something deeper about our relationship and our fight with community and also being on our own.
Well, so I wonder how many lessons you take from that because I think I would look at that and say that's a psychotic break.
No, no,
That penguin,
but I understand it. I mean,
but at the same time, you have
yeah,
stories of, like, with people.
yeah,
There's, like, stories about, like, 5 people hanging onto a raft after a shipwreck or something like that, and they're in the
yeah,
water,
yeah,
and there's a reasonable expectation
Yeah,
that someone will find them. They just have to hang on.
right.
And then you always hear the story about the one guy that swears he saw something and just started swimming off,
Yeah,
you know, and you're not sure whether he actually saw something or if he just got so sick and tired of the four other people on the raft,
right.
he just couldn't envision living a second longer with them.
That story, I believe, the latter part. You know, you just
Yeah.
had enough of the people, and you want to be away from the things of man at any cost.
What kind of lesson do you take from that, though? If
Well,
some
it's that
crazed penguin
no,
decides to just walk towards death,
no.
or if I
There's something beautiful about it, and the decision, and the clarity, and the commitment to it. And that whatever they say, and if there are humans and the humans are told not to interact with them at all, but even if one did to try to turn them around and get back to them, they're just going to turn right around and continue on their way. And that was the and I just forgot that line, but that is what Werner Herzog said. You know, they are on their way, and the way is on their path. It's a beautiful German term, you know, den Weg. They're they're on their own personal way, you know.
they're marching to their own drummer.
They are, but it's their way, and that's I think the key to that. So he went his that's when he was a male. I kind of think it was went his way. So
Not that you're misgendering the
no,
penguin in
no,
question, but,
not at all. But I don't know, for me, and maybe that's my psychosis, there's something tragic but also beautiful about staying on your way, you know, defiantly.
well, it's yeah, I mean, we sometimes will romanticize it like taking charge of one's own fate,
Yeah,
you know, running headlong into the next experience,
exactly.
we do tend to romanticize and value that.
We do. Damn the torpedoes. Full steam ahead, right? Full speed ahead. You would know that better than I.
That's a Tom Petty album, right?
I was thinking it was uh, who's the guy who pretended to be a Russian in that submarine?
Hunt for Red October,
Yeah, Sean Connery.
Marcos Ramius.
Yes, he would do that too. He's a one of the solitary penguins as well.
Yeah, I think it's something that perhaps we've not really gotten into. We've only scratched the surface of this topic, but,
But
I think there's a lot.
the rootedness sort of this takes it pivots a little bit, you know, with this because we're sort of struggling. We've been struggling through what does all this mean? Because we do have these psychotic views of community,
Mm.
and I think in a way that's why we connect. I mean, you're the one who can't sit for 15 minutes in a faculty meeting, wander the halls. So
I was I was going my way.
yeah, exactly. So but there's only so much we can take, right?
Yeah, he's almighty. Well, with that, we put a bow onto that one
Oh,
and,
I think it
venture towards it maybe in the future,
I
because
think we
as I
should. I
said,
think
I think there's more there to unpack, as the kids say.
we do. I think it was our finest hour, but I do think that we're just scratching the surface of this one because it actually brings up and we start to think about our past
Yeah.
and where we're headed. It's a big topic, and I think that a lot of people wouldn't understand or have access to this conversation if there's somebody who stays put. You know, they would say, well, why would you even consider that, right?
They may not have an ear for the conversation. I mean,
Exactly.
if they are so much more rooted than we are.
That's right. So we are the problem as usual. I've never doubted that.
All right, with that, we shall, first of all, thank you everyone for listening. We appreciate it. Keep in mind that we have a trip that's being Shield for. It's going to be in the description below. It's if you're in the Dallas Fort Worth area or have the means to easily get to Dallas Fort Worth, then this could be in your future. Whether you are Protestant, Catholic, something completely different, or nothing at all, this is a trip that would be a reward for anybody. So go check it out if you're interested. But most importantly, thank you so much for listening and tune in next time. And with that, I shall say adieu, Herr Dr. Bourgeois.
Auf Wiedersehen, Herr Miller.